Good evening. Welcome to the news at 4 on Leadership Television. My name is Winifred Ogbebo. The former Minister of Education, Dr. Obiageli Ezekwesili, has urged the Nigerian Senate to fully restore the rights and privileges of the senator representing the Kogi Central, Natasha describing her earlier suspension as unjust and discriminatory. In a post on X, formerly Twitter, on Wednesday, Ezekwesili said the lawmakers returned to the Senate after a 6-month suspension should serve as an opportunity for the National Assembly to correct what she called a grave mistake. It's time for your leadership and members to do the right thing, end all forms of harassment or targeting against her, she wrote. Senator Natasha's suspension is seen by all reasonable Nigerians as an act of injustice, one that went far beyond the bounds of fair discipline. Ezekwesili said Senator Akpoti Uduaghan had become a symbol of fortitude and resilience necessary to fight injustice perpetrated against citizens by those who abuse public power. She called on the Senate to stop all silent punishments and reinstate Akpoti Uduaghan's full privileges as a lawmaker. Restore her full rights and privileges as a senator. Her office, her staff, her committee roles, and her right to speak freely in the chamber must be available for her to fully function, she added. The former minister cum activist further challenged the 10th Senate to set a higher standard of fairness and transparency in handling internal matters. This is not only about Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan, it's about what kind of democracy Nigeria wants to build, one where no one is punished for standing up for the truth, and where women can lead without fear or bias or bullying, she wrote. She concluded by urging the Senate to demonstrate integrity and restraint moving forward. In another development, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, has secured the conviction of a retired Director of Finance and Administration with the Abuja Metropolitan Management Council, AMMC, Garuba Duku, over a 318 million naira fraud. In a judgment delivered by Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court, Abuja, Duku was sentenced to 24 years in prison after being found guilty on a 6-count charge bordering on corruption and money laundering. According to a statement released on Thursday by the ICPC's Director of Public Enlightenment and Education, Demola Bakari, the offenses were committed between 2012 and 2013 when Duku allegedly diverted 318,250,000 naira belonging to AMMC into his personal account with Fidelity Bank PLC. Bakari explained that investigations revealed the funds were received in several installments: 56.25 million naira, 71 million naira, 53 million naira, 54 million naira, 46 million naira, and 36.3 million naira, and later transferred to Bureau de Change operators for unauthorized transactions. ICPC prosecutors told the court that the transactions violate government financial regulations and that Duku's actions were a clear abuse of public trust, the statement read. During the trial, Duku claimed that he handed the funds over to his superiors, but the court dismissed the defense for lack of evidence. In his ruling, Justice Omotosho held that the prosecution proved this case beyond reasonable doubt, describing the ICPC's evidence as credible, consistent, and sufficient to establish the offenses charged. Consequently, the judge sentenced Duku to 4 years imprisonment on each of the 6 counts with an option of fine equivalent to 5 times the amount involved in each count, amounting to about 1.6 billion naira. The sentences are to run concurrently. Reacting to the verdict, Bakari hailed the judgment as a significant win in the Commission's anti-corruption drive. This judgment underscores ICP's unwavering commitment to ensuring that public officers who betray the trust reposed in them are brought to justice, he said. No one entrusted with public funds is above the law, and this conviction sends a strong message that corruption will not go unpunished. Bakari added that the Commission will continue to pursue all cases of graft with diligence and professionalism to safeguard public resources. In another news, President Bola Tinubu on Thursday presided over the second meeting of the National Council of State since he assumed office, with notable absences recorded among Nigeria's former leaders, including General Yakubu Gowon, retired, and former Presidents Olusegun Obasanjo and Goodluck Jonathan. The hybrid session held inside the council chambers of the Presidential Villa Abuja commenced around 1:30 p.m. and brought together a cross-section of current and former national leaders, governors, and top government officials. Former military heads of state General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida retired and General Abdul Salami Abubakar retired joined the deliberations virtually. Among those physically present were Vice President Kashim Shettima, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi San, and several serving state governors. Governors in attendance included Abdurrahman Abdurazak Kwara, Simi Nalaye, Fubara Rivers, Peter Mba Enugu, Abba Kabir Yusuf, Kano, Nasir Idris Kebi, Osman Ododo Kogi, Babagana Zulum Bono, Dapo Abiodun Ogun, Ahmed Aliu Sokoto, Godwin Obaseki, sorry, meant to say Senator Monde Okpebolo, Edo, Ubasoni, Kaduna, and Alex Oti Abia, while Governor Charles Soludo of Anambra State joined the proceedings virtually. Also in attendance were former Chief Justices of Nigeria, including Muhammad Tanko, Mohammed Begore, Walter Onogen, Justice Olakayode Ariwola, and the current Chief Justice, Kudirat Kekereko. The Council of State, established under Section 153 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, serves as the highest advisory body to the President on critical national issues, including security, the prerogative of mercy, national population census, appointments to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and matters relating to the maintenance of public order. In other news, the federal government has directed all tertiary institutions across the country to submit comprehensive reports on unutilized intervention funds from the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TED Fund, within 30 days. Minister of Education Dr. Tunji Alausa gave the directive on Thursday in Abuja during a meeting with heads of tertiary institutions, warning that idle allocations would henceforth be redirected to priority projects. Alausa expressed concern over the growing number of institutions failing to utilize their TED Fund allocations, describing the trend as a major setback to educational development. Resources that could have been used to develop infrastructure in institutions have remained idle due to bottlenecks, he said. Institutions must submit reconciled reports of all unutilized funds within 30 days, which we jointly verified. Unused funds may be redirected to priority projects, and carry them over without strong justification will no longer be allowed. He further instructed that procurement plans must align with approved interventions and that approval processes should be fast-tracked to prevent delays. To improve efficiency and accountability, the minister announced the introduction of capacity-building programs aimed at strengthening project management, compliance, and reporting among institutions. He also disclosed that quarterly reviews will be held to assess progress and compliance levels, with sanctions for those failing to meet utilization standards. In other news, hundreds of protesters on Wednesday beside the corporate headquarters of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, in Abuja to demonstrate against banks' fraudulent practices and customers' victimization. The protesters, under the aegis of a coalition of civil society organizations, CSOs, submitted a petition addressed to Olayemi Kadoso, the governor of CBN, led by Flora Elekwa, director of mobilization and advocacy of the CSO. The protesters displayed placards with inscriptions like "Conspiracy, forgery, criminal breach of trust, taking a loan is not a crime, stop suffocating your customers, and make loan repayment transparent," among others. Elekwa told CBN officials who attended to protesters that the trend of fraudulent activities occasioned by unwarranted deductions is becoming alarming and portrays the banking sector in a bad light. These charges amount to a loss of millions of naira by bank customers, to the effect that banks declare trillions yearly as profit at the detriment of the customers who lack the voice to complain, she said. Even the regulatory agencies seem to be helpless in this situation. The street protests and advocacy march are aimed at drawing the attention of the government, regulatory authorities, and the general public to these unwholesome, illegal practices with a view to rectifying the situation. Addressing the protesters, Hakama Sidi Ali, the CBN Acting Director of Corporate Communications, said their grievances would be addressed. Foreign news. Israel's Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has announced that his religious Zionism party will vote against the proposed Gaza ceasefire and hostage deal, saying Israel must continue its military campaign against Hamas. Smotrich said he feels mixed emotions over the agreement, which could see the release of Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and the halt to fighting in Gaza. "I feel immense joy at the pending return of the hostages," he said, "but tremendous fear of the consequences of emptying the prisons and releasing the next generation of terrorist leaders who will do everything to continue spilling rivers of Jewish blood, God forbid. He added, we cannot join in the short-sighted celebrations or vote in favor of the deal. The Security Cabinet is expected to meet later today to review the terms of the Gaza ceasefire deal, followed by a full government vote. A strong majority in favor of the agreement is anticipated despite opposition from far-right members. Smotrich insisted that Israel must continue fighting even after the hostages are released. It is a huge responsibility to ensure that this is not, God forbid, a deal of hostages in exchange for stopping the war, as Hamas thinks and brags about, he said. Immediately after the hostages return, Israel must continue with all its might toward the full eradication of Hamas and the demilitarization of Gaza. Smotrich also rejected key elements of the U.S. brokered 20-point peace plan, which includes steps towards a political process for Palestinian statehood and the possible deployment of an international force in Gaza. That concludes the news at 4 on Leadership Television. For more, log in to www.leadership.ng. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.